Hey there, welcome to Unmuted Voices, where we dive into the real stories behind why we stay silent, how we reclaim our voice, and what it truly means to speak with confidence. I'm Aisha, founder and chief communications coach at Start in the Beginning, and a longtime market research executive. I've spent years helping people and companies find their voice, and even now, I'm still learning how to use mine more boldly. I'm so glad you're here. This isn't just a podcast, it's a community, a place for those of us who've ever held our voices back or felt like the world did it for us to find a different way forward. Today's episode is an important one. We are starting with the foundation, why we go silent and why it's not your fault. Here's what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to talk about why silence isn't a flaw, it's a survival strategy. Then we'll explore what shapes our silence, culture, identity, even politeness. And finally, we'll look at how to recognize when it's time to unmute and what small steps you can take when you're ready. And if you stick around for this season, we're going even deeper. You'll hear about how silence can actually be a leadership strategy and how internalized bias shapes our relationship with voice, but also how to keep speaking even when it feels easier to stay quiet. First, let's start here. Reframing silence. First things first, silence isn't weakness. It's not cowardice. It's not a lack of ambition or intelligence or courage. Silence, especially for those of us from marginalized communities or those who felt judged, overlooked, or underestimated, is often a form of protection. It's the brain doing its job, staying quiet to avoid conflict, staying quiet to feel safer, staying quiet to avoid being misunderstood or harmed. In psychology, they call it a survival response. Just like fight, flight, or freeze, your body and mind learn that silence may be safer than speaking. And guess what? That's not your fault. That's your survival instinct doing exactly what they were designed to do. But it's not just instinct. Silence is shaped by culture, by circumstance, by the stories we're told about what it means to be good or respectful or professional. In some cultures, silence is seen as respect, a way of honoring authority or elders, and in others, speaking only when spoken to is what's considered good manners and politeness. If you grew up in an environment where raising your voice led to punishment or where emotions were tucked away for survival, silence may have become your default. Socioeconomic conditions shape this too. Sometimes speaking up doesn't feel safe if you don't have the power or privilege to protect yourself. Gender, race, language, class, they all intersect. And for some of us, silence wasn't just a habit, it was armor. And here's something else. Silence doesn't just affect those who are shy or uncertain. You can be the most confident person in the room and still find yourself falling silent, especially when the stakes are high, right? Asking for a raise, advocating for a teammate, setting a boundary, challenging a system that resists being challenged. Silence can slip in even when you know your worth because it's not about confidence, it's about cost. And that's where it gets really complicated. Even though silence kept us safe, it also came with a cost. Missed opportunities, misunderstandings that never got corrected, promotions or relationships that never quite happened, moments where you shrank and later wondered what could have been different if you had spoken. We carry those costs quietly, and with them, we often carry guilt for the conversations we didn't have, guilt for the boundaries we didn't set, guilt for feeling like we let ourselves down. But here's what I want you to hear today. You didn't fail yourself, you survived. What's past is past. You don't owe anyone a better version of yourself. You don't owe the world an unmuted voice for their comfort. You owe it to yourself, to your growth, to your healing, to your wholeness. Unmuting isn't a performance, it's a promise to you. So, how do you know when it's time? Here's some internal signals: feeling a tightness or shrinking sensation in important conversations, regret or rumination after staying silent, A sense that you're editing or erasing yourself to keep the peace, feeling invisible or overlooked, even in spaces where you should be heard. In your gut, knowing that what you wanted to say mattered, but you swallowed it. So here's some external signals. Repeated patterns where silence cost you opportunities or respect, being misunderstood or misrepresented, and staying quiet rather than correcting it. Watching others, less qualified or less informed, taking a space that you shrink from. Noticing that the changes you care about aren't happening because you stayed on mute. Realizing that relationships feel unbalanced because your needs or ideas aren't voiced. If you're staying silent out of habit, not out of choice, it may be time to take a step. It doesn't have to be dramatic. One word, one sentence, one small disruption of the old pattern. If you're ready to start unmuting, here are some exercises that you can try. Number one, the silence timeline. You're going to write down a few moments where silence protected you. Then you're going to list a few moments where silence actually held you back. The goal isn't judgment. Don't be hard on yourself, it's clarity. The second thing you're going to try is the voice inventory exercise. What you're going to do is list 3 times you wanted to speak but didn't. Then you're going to list 3 times where you did speak up, even when it was scary. What's the pattern? Jot those things down, right? Observe what you did differently. Number three, the 5 word practice. You're going to pick a topic that you care about. You're going to practice saying just 5 words about it, just five, out loud to yourself. These small steps are going to build comfort and confidence in talking about that particular topic. Listen, you don't have to go from silent to keynote speaker overnight. Tiny risks, tiny wins. If today's conversation sparked something in you, a memory, a feeling, a glimmer of possibility, I'm so glad. Remember, your voice was never broken. It was waiting, and you don't have to unmute perfectly, just honestly. If you're ready to keep going, keep learning, keep unmuting, make sure to follow Unmuted Voices wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more tips, tools, and conversations between episodes, come find Unmuted Voices on Instagram and YouTube. If this episode felt like a friend you've been needing, share it with someone you trust. Sometimes hearing me too is the first step towards finding your voice again. Next time, we'll dive into why public speaking feels so terrifying and how it's not really about the mic, it's actually about being seen. And later in the season, we'll explore silence as a leadership strategy and the hidden ways internalized bias teaches us to mute ourselves before anyone else can. Until then, remember, before we find our voices, we have to forgive ourselves for losing them. Thanks for tuning in. Talk soon.